a quick full screen splash. So first I'm going to just go ahead and select the header with the header selector, and I will go ahead and make it red and put a border around it so I can see that I have selected the correct thing. Always a good first step. Great, so that's the header. I have in fact selected it. So I'm going to use a handy unit called view height. So view height is percentage of the height of the viewport on whatever browser I'm on. So 100 view, oops, I said view width. 100 view height, that's VH. Let me zoom in so you can see that. 100 VH will let me automatically size my header to fill the screen. And if I pop this out into a new tab, you'll see that it kind of automatically is just the whole height of the screen, and its height changes depending on the height of my screen, like that. Beautiful. So that's going to start, and I'm going to make, I have this tree image that I want to use as my background. So I'm going to go ahead and say background image. Remember, it's URL, and then we need quotes, and then the name of the file. So I'll do tree study. Cool. And there's a background repeat property by default, which we might not want. So I'm going to say background repeat, no repeat, background size cover. And that should now make it fill the page. If I wanted to say background size contain, I'll show you what that looks like instead. That'll make it fit in the page. So I think I want mine to actually cover the page the way that it just did. Perfect. Now this is a little bit tricky because my design is going to look different at different sizes. It starts in the top left by default, so usually what you want is for your image to be centered. So I'm going to go ahead and say background position center, and I'll show you how that looks. So now my tree is centered no matter what, and as I resize the page, I get a centered background like this. So that looks pretty good. Now I could go ahead and take the other elements. If I look at my HTML, I have a header, and the header contains an H1 and an H2. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe stack those down on the right, or I have to decide how I want them. So I can decide how I want to position those elements. Actually, maybe what I'll do here is display flex direction column, and that will let me justify items wherever I want. So I'm going to say justify content flex end, align items flex end. I think that's going to move them down into the right. Let's see if I got it right. Cool. So now they're down into the right. There's a bunch of space between them. That's because there's margins there. So if I did header H1, header H2, I can go ahead and get rid of the margins. Cool. And now, of course, I still have a problem that I wanted away from the edge, so I might go ahead and add to this header padding. And maybe I'll just set that at like 32 pixels. Oops. Pretty close. The one problem here is now my size is 100 view height plus 32 pixels. The solution to that is box sizing, border box, which probably you should just put on everything in your life. There we go. So now as I resize this, I've got a nice full screen header, and I've got my text there in the bottom right. Obviously I can then work on making that text more readable, and then as I scroll up, it goes away. One thing you may have seen before is where the text will stick to the top of the screen. And the way we do that is with what we call position sticky. So I'm going to go to header 1 and say position sticky, top 5 pixels. I believe that's going to work. Let's see if that works. So if I now scroll, oh yeah, it did stick, but then it went by. So I'll have to work on that. In a second.